where you can take them on a journey of looking at all aspects of themselves, their mind, their body, their emotional field, giving the opportunity to meet the client where they are. That to me is also where a lot of connection comes between sitting there and creating a resonance with someone who's sitting in front of you.
How special of a podcast this was. I have my two co-founders for the Integrative Psychology Institute, Carney and Molly Mendoza, come onto the show for one of the most authentic conversations that I think I've had on this show. A conversation amongst friends going into mental health, somatic health, authenticity, really being able to center yourself in relationship to people in your workplace or your business. We talk about what an integrative psychologist is, and ultimately how people who are heart-centric, wanting to do better in this world, create the best businesses out there. If you're interested in learning how to relate to your coworkers, your family, your friends, and ultimately yourself on a deeper level, this episode's for you. I want you to sit back, relax, put your feet up, and just receive this information the way nature intended, from the heart. Check out this episode with my wonderful friends and my wonderful co-founders on this episode of Heal Yourself. So welcome, guys. Look, we have this beautiful, beautiful school, Integrative Psychology Institute, where we're really changing the face. That's our motto. We want to change the face of therapy. Where are we going in the world of therapy? And my experience, I've had a lot of therapists over my life, and I've been with them for a long time, and there weren't really massive shifts until I started learning more that it was integrative. Mm-hmm. So, Molly, what has driven your experience with therapy to come to this place? And then Adam, I'd love to hear yours too.
Yeah, I remember some specific moments when I was studying at university and I had a therapy practice that I was seeing one-on-one, and I had my movement practice. And I remember how much transformation and shift would happen in the way that I would see the world, how I would relate to myself and how I would relate to everything around me. It was so much more powerful when I would go to a yoga class than sit and speak to my therapist. And there was something that was happening where I felt very intellectually committed to showing up to therapy because I've actually always really valued what it is to create a support system. I think that having a support system is something that is so important. And I started to notice that actually so much more transformation was happening for me when I was moving my body and breathing and learning the most basic things, which is what is it to feel connected to myself in a way that I know how I want to move? How is it that I want to breathe? And in that, I was coming into deeper connection with myself.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm being honest, I never resonated with the culture of therapy, meaning it feels like it can feel very, very, very oversensitized. And I often feel like there's the therapy culture, it seems to be inspiring this very oversensitive nature in people, which I also want to acknowledge that in the healing process, I think that is an important step to become really sensitive around sensitive issues, just to acknowledge the sensitivity around things. But I think for me, as I've gotten more into therapy, I've realized that in my own healing, I'm actually feel more whole. Like when I can be silly, when I can be myself and not have to feel like I have to say things right or I have to use the perfect therapy language. So that's become a lot of my practice personally, of like taking the masks off more and also trying to inspire other people to connect in that space, including our team and our therapists. And I think that they're finding that it's like, I find like remember we had our call last week and we had a new person on the team and I was like, look, you should just know this about us. Like, that's not our culture. We're ourselves. You guys are like two of my best friends. We interact like brother and sister. And that for me is like, I think what I'm more presently interested in, like what is that? And how do we bring more of that culture? And I'm curious more lately about how that type of culture in itself is healing, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's like,
I like it.
Where I am presently.
It feels to me that we've had this, these really hard boundaries in our culture around being oversensitized and not saying too much and being very politically correct.
Right.
Not to say that we're completely unpolitically correct.
Yeah, sure.
That's a word, but like
there's a line.
within the boundaries of generosity, connected heart, authenticity, and love, but also not afraid to be ourselves. And this is the big part of what I really believe in our own healing and connecting back to who we are is that part of being able to express ourselves without hurting people. So now there's a whole movement of just be yourself, but people don't know what it is to be themselves. And now they're offending people not because they're triggering them, but they're just shitty people because they think I'm being myself and I feel like I want to be mad and I'm just going to let it out on this person. So in your own experience, how has your authenticity expressed in a way that you know is distinct from a traumatized one, but a really heart-centric one? What does authentic, heart-centric authenticity even look like for you?
I think actually that circles back to exactly the difference between what was happening when I was sitting in a room in front of a therapist is I was actually forcing myself to be something in that moment. There was an identity that I was having to tell a story about, believe in, almost understand, like, why am I as I am right now? Versus what was happening when I was in an embodied movement practice or a practice where I was breathing, is I was actually experiencing myself as I was. And there's, it's a word that's everywhere now, is this word embodiment. And it's also something I've been teaching and really pouring my life into, because I believe that connection of who we are can only come when we're able to experience ourselves with a little less inhibition of who we believe we're meant to be. And I was almost reinforcing consistently initially in therapy the identity of who I thought I was meant to be at that time. And so much of the resistance in the way that I was living was because I wasn't living up to certain ways that felt like that was the natural trajectory. And the moment I was in movement, I felt free. Yeah. And that was the most free, and is the most free I actually experience myself in, is often a practice where I'm connected to my sense of self that is center. And I mean, people could experience it as like the center of their body or their heart or just their physicality, but something beyond the story that we are told or tell ourselves about who we are. And that can sound really abstract, and yet something I love about this work is bringing a cohesion to the lens of our identity, our intellect, and our soma, and finding a place where, again, it sounds abstract, but there's actually an experience of wholeness in that we're not defining ourselves from something outside of here, but we're beginning to experience ourselves from the inside out. And that for me is where the shift begins to come with healing, which even is a word which sometimes I don't resonate with, because it can describe or be symbolic of something that needs to be healed or is separate. And it's more for me a view of recognizing where something wasn't apart or separate from one another, and we're just experiencing ourselves in a new way. And there's such a freshness and aliveness that comes with this.
So this is for the viewers and listeners. I want you to listen to this, because that's the distinction. When they say be authentic, it's not like you're thinking about what it is to be authentic. Mm-hmm. It's that center place, wherever it is in your body, that you're coming from and expressing yourself authentically.
Absolutely. Okay. Versus a trend of what it is to perform authentically in order to be successful as someone who is authentic, because that's something that we hear a lot, particularly in this.
I find that I don't know what my authenticity is going to be next. Like the moment that we think we know what our authenticity is, we're trying to pre-prescribe it. So like I had an idea of how I was going to feel sitting here, and I actually feel much different than I was thinking. And I think just the way in my head that this was going to go, it just felt different. And that's, I think, part of the fun of being alive, is that like we don't know what we're going to feel, and we get to be a little bit curious about what that is, as opposed to having an idea of what it is and then being like, oh, well, I'm not being in my authenticity now because I had some idea of what that was. It's like always emerging. It's always
And this
unfolding.
culture has been trying to define authenticity almost as a way to present ourselves as like, it's just another layer of definition
100%.
that we have to.
It's like the moment that you define, or even trying to define authenticity, you're disconnected from the experience of authenticity. And
often that's to do with the fact that we live in a culture of achievement, purpose around something that we define ourselves as. And to me, that's the first layer of encouraging a willingness to reconsider when I sit with a client. And one of the first things that I will do is say, can we potentially welcome a space where you're going to experience yourself in a completely new way?
Mm-hmm. You know what I realized too is like, I don't think that I often feel kind of like weird. Us
Just
three
in general,
yeah. But I don't think we don't fit the culture of therapy. Mm-hmm. Like when you think of a therapist, I think we're coming at it from a different perspective than the like Freudian, and then we know all about Jung, and then, you know, there's like a progression that I think people go through. We come from a really different place. And sometimes we're also, by the way, the youngest female founder of a US university in history.
That's it.
And I think like by far, we've got to be the youngest university like leadership team. I don't even think it's a little bit close. And so sometimes in that, I feel a little bit weird, and it feels weird to be authentic. I posted this yesterday, how like, I see how in this process of what we've done, I see so clearly how it can take your soul away, because there's all this legal pressure. There's all this, like, the system of the US universities is really set up to get you to conform. And I feel like we're always like fighting that force, both from the legal system that we just went through, but then also like, you know, people like comment shit on our Instagram and they're like, oh, like you guys aren't like preparing people for licensure. Like, well, we are, like, we have that. And I just think that when there's a new energy in the space, I think there is a reaction to it. And that's what I'm feeling right now.
Always.
Is like people look at us like, oh, who are these new people?
Always.
And in that, it's like we back up, we're able to back up all the stuff that we're doing, which also, you know.
And we're staying true to a culture that wants to stay healthy in our mind and our body and our spirit, in the way that we're working together, in the way that we're bringing lightness in the moments where there is challenge and heaviness, and just in terms of the admin that we have to go through to license, and so many of the pieces we have to go through could be, it would stop a lot of people from leaning in. And I think we're leaning in with the spirit of, we are going to stay really true to be an example of what is possible in this world.
And imagine leadership that trickles down like that into the product and into the people and into the teachers, and how the whole world of therapy and therapy schools has been trickled down by people who are so desperately disconnected from who they are, or, you know, just doing their job and not passionate or connected to it.
So we have all the people coming for interviews for the program. So we do a face-to-face interview, and I can't tell you how many students that we've had that say, I started my master's degree, and they start getting sick. They're just like, I just feel so awful in that educational system. And they find us, and you know, but it's just interesting. Like, they're signing up for a wellness education track, but they themselves are getting less well. Like, that to me is the first sign that something is energetically off.
Oh, the body isn't going to lie. We all know that, right? The body will never lie about the alignment, misalignment, what it's doing. So what the heck is the problem? Like, let's say here I am just finishing college, and I love helping people and talking through things, and I just want to be a therapist. What the heck is the problem with therapy school? Why are we so in need of therapists?
Question.
Why are we so in need of therapists? Why the mental health world is a mess? We're so in need of therapists, and it's just so difficult to become a therapist. For the people viewing and listening, we just want to put it out there for you. Even if you're not going to school, I want you to know what it looks like, Adam. Where are we at?
Yeah, he's calling on me because I'm the one who like does all of our dense legal stuff and like learned all the, and I have to say, like, I think it's the most complicated thing I've ever had to wrap my head around, meaning how to set up an educational program to prepare students for licensure. I literally, like, I couldn't explain it on this podcast in an hour. It's so complicated. Like, it's actually insane. But like, so in short, I think what I've realized is that to become a counselor, not even a psychotherapist, that's for PhDs, takes 9 years at a minimum. That's the same amount of time it takes to become a medical doctor. But if you become a medical doctor, the average salary of a new MD graduate is something like $280,000. The salary for a new counselor is about $70,000. So if you're sitting there right now and you're deciding, if you're 25, you're deciding which path to go, like, nobody would rationally choose that path. And so in that system, you're going to see people turning away from becoming a mental health practitioner, which is interesting in an environment where there's more mental health issues than any time in history by far. So on one side, we have more mental health disease, and simultaneously, it's harder than ever to become a therapist. Like, something about that, and people defend the system and they say, oh, it's got to be this way for safety. There's a component of safety, but that's not really what it is. I'm not going to talk about the economics of that, but like, intuitively, it just doesn't make common sense. The system doesn't make common sense. And that was our curiosity in the beginning of like, okay, why is it set up this way? How do we fix it? And we learned a lot from the Canadian system. Like, the Canadian system makes a lot of sense. And I'm not going to get so much into like the intricacies of how we set up the degree, because I think that'll just get, it's too nuanced and boring. But we've set up a pathways that people can get a master's degree in 18 months. It's like fully embodied, designed for them to get, and then they can get licensure if they choose to. So it's a huge step in the right direction. And we're also lobbying the licensing boards and the DOE. I literally like email the Department of Education every week just about what we find, because nobody else is shining light on the fact that as a new school, it's like almost impossible to prepare people for licensure. It's not that it's not even that it's hard anymore. It's just that it is actually impossible for a new school. We had to do all sorts of like creative setup stuff to make that possible.
To set something up. So what is the old paradigm and what is the paradigm that we're bringing in? Let me talk to you something that has been a total game changer in my home, and it's probably not what you think is an air purifier. Because what we breathe in matters as much as what we eat or drink. And air quality in our homes can be filled from everything from mold spores to pollen to smoke to allergies. And air purifiers are so important. Most of them are going to be in plastic boxes, make a lot of noise. And then I discovered the Jasper was brought to me by that purifier. It's true much that I've got the fountain. And what immediately caught my attention is the design. So many of the air purifiers are clunky, antiquated looking, 90s looking. This is sleek, quiet, powerful. But here's what really got me. Built with steel, not plastic. So we're talking about machines that are actually built to last. So Jasper handles everything. Smoke, pollen, all the allergens feel terrible without you. Whether you're dealing with seasonal allergies, live in an area, wildfires, smoke, or just want the cleanest air home, get this. I'm confident that you will love it. It has a lifetime warranty. Yes, like tells you everything you need to know about the quality engineering goes into the unit. Since I've been using my Jasper for about a year now, I have 2 running. One's on the first floor, one's on the second floor. I have 3. One first floor, second, third floor. And I've noticed cleaner air, better overall sleep, and just an overall sense of home environment. Clean, the air is nice. We tested it. We have people come in and test the air. The air is super clean. You Jasper. Go to jasper.co/DRG and use the code DRG for $200 off for a limited time. That's JASR.co/DRG. You know that stress is a common factor that affects everyone in today's world. I know I get stressed, and I can get stressed and overwhelmed fairly easily, especially if I don't balance myself with the proper nutrients. And I know that that leads to various issues. And what if one of those key nutrients is one that is depleted in 70% of us? You know I'm talking about magnesium. Actually, I'm talking about a specific magnesium that is Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. It is my favorite magnesium. I take 2 before bed. My partner takes 2 before bed, It not only helps us sleep, but I know it helps my bowel movements. Every morning, it's getting me flowing. Biooptimizer's magnesium is something I've taken already for 4 years, or right around there, and it's part of my daily regimen. The supplements change, but this is one of the staples. It's been there for quite a while. And it's designed to address your low levels of magnesium with 7 different forms of magnesium. So your body is getting all of the forms that it needs to optimize itself. Magnesium is important for balancing cortisol, balancing stress, balancing your hormonal systems, especially in the production of something called GABA. This is the neurotransmitter that is produced to keep you at peace, to keep you in a flow state. And a lot of us can't produce enough of it because we have low magnesium. So magnesium in all of its forms is going to act like a brake to your nervous system, help calm it, help soothe it, and help your quality of life. Always unequivocally, when someone asks me about magnesium, I always recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by Biooptimizers, always. And it's a one organic, full spectrum magnesium supplement that includes all of the 7 forms of magnesium for better sleep, better bowel movements, calmer nervous system, and really all of your organs, including your heart. So when life feels hectic, and you know it does, I know it does, Magnesium Breakthrough helps support a calm, relaxed state. If I'm struggling to wind down, this really, really helps me set adrift. If you want some of the best magnesium in the industry, go to biooptimizers.com/DRG and use the code DRG10 at checkout to save 10%. That is BIOPTIMIZERS.com/DRG, and the promo code is DRG10. And if you subscribe, not only will you get an amazing discount and free gifts, it also makes sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. And if you subscribe, not only will you get an amazing discount and free gifts, it also makes sure your monthly supply is guaranteed.
The old paradigm is that students finance the prospects of a future career on federal student loans. So like, I think you told me like you're still paying off.
Hell yeah.
Loans. Yeah.
Many.
Which is crazy. The new paradigm is start practicing right away, like, and learn while you're practicing. So in our program, like at week 10, we get them starting to see coaching clients. Mm-hmm. And then our mentors are
supervising
people who actually do that work, not an academic, not like a TA who has a PhD, like someone who is actually embodied and created that career is mentoring you as you go through that path. That's part of it. Just more practical, getting out of the academia model.
Yeah.
The embodied learning model. Yeah.
More experiential.
I was going to say something that's a through line through all of our courses, both our professional certifications and the master, is that we have a competency-based approach, meaning that when people are studying with us, it's not necessarily about, how well was this test written, but what are we seeing in these practice labs or in these facilitation forums that we've created, which are supervised, where there's mentors, where our key teachers are there. And there's huge sessions of feedback and practice and feedback and practice. And it's actually getting into it. And I can just speak to the paradigm that kind of from the world that I'm in of, teaching yoga teacher trainings and teaching dance for a long time. And, I set up my own mentor practice, I think when I was 21, just to teach people the embodiment language that I was learning. And I didn't have I hadn't studied anything to allow me to do that. And what I'm seeing is that so many people have this genuine desire to help others and truly are really skilled in something, and they don't necessarily have a journey with which they are taught or a structure with which they are taught to actually hold a really well-informed and competent container. So we see a lot of people doing short courses and, I'll do 6 months of life coaching online that's once a month and it's 6 sessions, and then I'm a life coach with this thing. And actually what's happening is that a lot of people I know are never feeling like enough within their capacity to hold the depth and the transformation that they would like to hold. And so for me, what we're also an answer to is we're going to create an educational experience that is experiential, practice-driven, and competency-based, meaning that you actually leave feeling confident and with a lot less imposter syndrome to actually now go and serve in the way that you want to serve in the field that you want to serve in. And then if they do, for example, if they do the psychosomatic practitioner training, they can then go on to become a therapist and or go on to licensure, and they can begin on this track where everything is building on one another. And they can actually end up feeling like they have a career from this, and they feel truly trained well enough, rather than having to do a myriad of short courses, of which are often surface level. There's an English expression, you can take this out of the podcast, but there's an expression that's called all fur coat and no knickers. And it means it's like, it's got all this pretty, like,
no shoes.
No shoes either.
Yeah.
But is it again?
All fur coat and no knickers.
What was the one?
It's like the fur coat, fancy.
I said that was your, all sizzle, no steak.
Sure.
So for the Americans out there,
It's the same
what is
thing.
it? All fur, no knickers is
But
the
I
American
like-
version of all sizzle, no steak.
And I have been someone who has
definitely
gone through,
leaving this in.
I've gone through so many short courses and this and that and the other,
For
and I
sure.
end up just
For
feeling
sure.
like, where's the content? Like, there's so much around it. There's so much branding around the offering of this and the offering of this, and I come out and I'm like, I'm still just offering the same mentorship that I was before, and I'm actually not. And so what we do also with Elm, which I don't know if you want to speak about at some point, is offer a journey of something that I truly believe is a new paradigm of a transformational and growth provoking journey, and not something that you have to do because you have a diagnosis, but something you want to do because you want to live in a system where you're supported.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the therapy model is so much, actually, I think the more we've dug into it, we've realized that it's culturally and structurally similar to primary care medicine. Where in that it's structured around individual sessions. So like, you go to a therapist, you do your session, and it's the therapists are trained to run that session. And the different modalities have different ways to run that one session. But functional medicine in the last 20 years came in and they said, no, like, let's actually have an ongoing relationship with your doctor. Your doctor actually knows you. They give you a full assessment in the beginning. And we were kind of saying, well, that feels like that should also exist in mental health. And so then we started to rethink of the method as a program. So as a therapist, you're getting trained with protocols to administer someone through a program that integrates all the levels of their well-being, not just it's not even just talk therapy versus somatics. Like, that in itself is a big upgrade. But it's like somatics over the course of a fully integrative 6-month program. Because you say this, like, it's like hard to be objective now about mental health while ignoring gut biome, right? Like, so let's say take therapist out of it. You have an hour to impact someone's mental health, and you're trying to be as objective as possible. In this world, you're not doing CBT. You're not doing somatics. You're like, what's your nutrients, right? Like, that's the biology is the underpinning of how we feel. And in therapy, we act as if that is irrelevant, and we act as if all of our feelings are the result of something of like a deficiency of emotional processing, cognitive or somatic. But on underneath it is actually biological. And I think it's exciting. Like, you hear Hyman talk about this, and you talk about this, like the functional medicine doctors, I think, are starting to bridge that gap. And I think we're almost just like facilitating that into the next reality.
It's functional. It's a little nuanced because it's functional in how we're then able to approach what is arising. But I don't think the root of all that is arising emotionally is functional. But how our capacity with which to then hold and process and engage.
I want to hear
is
your
both.
thoughts on that. So the question is, like, do you think that the feeling, the root of it is biological, or is the root of it?
If we think about, can an unhealthy diet create enough neuroinflammation and gut dysbiosis that it can affect your mood and put you in a loop and self-sabotage? Absolutely.
100%.
And to your point, in a therapy office, we don't even think about that.
Right.
It's just, we are working on the paradigm that is not even a factor to be thought about.
Right.
Absolutely. In the integrative model, which we put into our master's program, absolutely, we have to look at that. And at the very least, as therapists, refer out and say, you need a full nutrient panel testing from a functional doctor.
Yeah, it's like I don't mean to suggest that it's that the biology of it is all of it. Because like there are things that we hold on to, and those do create health things, but I think it's the fact that we just ignore the physical
completely
health.
ignore it completely, but they're intimately connected.
Intimately connected.
Totally.
Intimate, and it is so clear that the gut microbiome is intimately connected with it. But it's not
Right.
only that; it's like stealth viruses that are in the brain and causing inflammation, Lyme disease. It doesn't even have to be gut infections. It could be completely, or just lack of B vitamins, lack
Right.
of fat soluble vitamins, lack of fatty acids.
That was me in my 20s.
all of these
Crazy
things.
anxiety, and it's just nutrient deficiencies. I was like super deficient and stuff, and I was having panic attacks.
But this is why we're doing the integrative model, right?
Right.
We want to cover all these bases.
right.
I would love, I'm not the interviewer, and Christian, Dr. G.
This is the new format of
This is the new
podcast.
format.
We're just
Oh,
flowing.
it's
It's
been
the
interviewing too.
I mean,
never been interviewed on my own show.
I would love to hear why you're so passionate about being involved as one of our co-founders.
I was actually wondering that too, because you were in oncology, and then you're like, he like suddenly just became like emotional.
Yeah, this is a part of his big shift.
Jesus.
I went into oncology because my mom passed away in 2011 when I was in school. And when I went into my residency, it was a very evidence-based residency, and we were working in our naturopathic world, but within evidence-based. So there was nothing that we couldn't do that wasn't in the research. Great, like especially with the sensitive population. So that's when I learned so much about the power of nutrients and how they can really help people, and herbs, how they can help people go through cancer. But moving out of that and finally graduating from the residency, I was in San Francisco and I had my own little practice. And I was seeing women with breast cancer, and I go, okay, here are all the evidence-based things, but there are things that we're not looking at, and the hospital didn't let me look at, that are still evidence-based, but we still just didn't put them on a pedestal. And the two biggest things were environmental toxins and stress. Stress was too generalized for me to even understand at that point. So I went into toxins, and I went into mold, and I went into formaldehyde and BPA and all the things that we find. And actually, that's how we made a name for ourselves in Heal Thyself. It grew so much because people were like, what's the best matcha? What's the best couch? What's the best bed? And I'm like, my whole school education became reduced to being like this consumer guy. And then there was a moment, it was in my old studio, it hit me, and I go, okay, if there's mold, because I was having mold symptoms, if there's mold in this studio, but I feel stress about other things in my life, my cup is already 3/4 full. So all of these things that are environmentally affecting me are always overflowing because my cup's full of dirt and mud water. And
Put
and
the
then
Instagram handle.
yeah, there you go, mud water. And then that's when it hit me. I go, well, let me go back to that stress thing. What is stress? And then I define stress as the somatic experience of when you're not allowing yourself to express a part of you that is not safe. So I go, okay. So then I thought about the husband that comes home from work and he says, honey, I was stressed. I was stressed all day. And she goes, oh, you need a massage or a walk, or, let's just take a load off. But what does that mean? It means when the boss yelled at him, he didn't allow himself to, like, in his boundary, go, hey, you don't talk to me like that. And that caused an internal experience of stress. And then that's when it hit me. I go, holy shit. Most people are living this life with stress, not like I'm stressed because work was hard, but literally internal repressed parts of them that are living and building up that mud water. And that's shifted everything. That's when I went into somatics. Because I go, resiliency matters more than exposure. Complete shift.
This is a big tangent, but did you ever talk to your audience about your dad?
My dad in general?
No, remember?
Oh, just like him being a disco king?
Yeah. Did you ever talk about that?
No.
Do we want to bring that up right now?
Yeah. Well, how are we going to bridge it to this deep thing that just came out of me?
we were in Portland. We were having a sleepover. And I forgot how did it come up? Christian was telling us, do you want me to?
Go ahead.
So Christian was telling us the story of his dad about, like the John Travolta disco guy. The person who invented that was Christian's dad, because
The emoji.
literally the emoji of that guy is your dad.
The dancer
because
guy.
you said because he used to walk with a cane.
Not because he needed it.
Oh, he didn't even need it.
Oh, it was just for
just
style.
because it was awesome. Yeah, that checks out.
Platform shoes, Fu Manchu mustache, long hair down to his butt.
And you said he was like the most famous disco dancer in New York.
He was the first influencer.
He used to go into the club and he would do this with his cane.
But it was a weapon.
So then they didn't let other people use the cane, but he could still use the cane.
Yeah.
And then like the people who were doing the research for
the
Saturday
movie.
Night Fever found him, and then John Travolta's character was made after him.
At the dancing moves that he was doing.
The dancing moves,
not
yeah.
the story, because they
not
didn't
the
interview my dad. But that move, because my dad was dancing with the cane.
That is like the most badass.
Yeah,
story
he was
ever.
dancing with the cane, and people were like, "What's he doing?" He called himself Christian. What's Christian doing? And he's using his finger. He's using the cane.
Was your dad Christian Senior?
His name's Walter.
Oh, so why did he call? Why?
Because he just loved the name, you know. So yeah, but that was a tangent. But it's an authenticity tangent because
Authenticity tangent. That should be a new segment.
Yeah, let's pull
Like a
it
show
back in.
segment.
I'll tell you why. My experience with authenticity was, my dad is a great example. He was in the fashion industry, super authentic to what he wanted to wear, how he wanted his facial hair to be, how he walked. He wasn't really thinking about it. He was always an artist in a world of artistry, but it was stressful. Fashion industry is stressful.
Totally.
And you can see he was living in this world of like, who he needs to be in this industry and the facade he needs to put on, and the artist he is on the weekends, and the artist he is with clothes on the weekends, and the way he makes clothes at home. And there was just this dichotomy that was not met until he got older and he left the industry and he retired. And now he's becoming more of this man who's like complete in his artistry, calm nervous system now.
Totally.
Doesn't have to show up in any other way, which kind of brings back like this purpose, right? And I love to know, Molly, hearing about my dad and like trying to fight like who I should be and who I really am, and finally in his old age really starts embodying that. If you had a client or someone in your class or you're teaching go, I'm so out of my purpose and I have a purpose but I don't know what it is, how do you start bringing them back into this?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your journey also with what's becoming more of like the places that are meeting just the functional medicine background. I love hearing, I mean, I knew a lot of it, and I love how this unearths even more about why that's come to be. The first thing I would invite, whether it's in a one-to-one session or a group session, is actually our connection to our intuition. I think so often there's a non-trust and a non-listening when there's a pull from within, because we're not necessarily feeling connected. Part of why I shifted from teaching yoga to dance was because I realized that I'd done yoga so much that I was able to go and be through a yoga class and be completely dissociated. And I think we're in such a stimulating environment in general so often that dissociation has become a complete norm. And part of reconnecting to myself was beginning to listen and learn through that pulse, that pull that we each have in moments where we're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, or I'm just feeling this thing and I don't know the reason why. Radically beginning to own those parts of ourselves and leaning into that, to me, was one of the biggest shifts in my life that actually happened, where I was like, there are going to be consequences of this. These things won't necessarily make sense, but I'm going to try this on. And sometimes I'll encourage clients to try it on as an experiment. Like, just for the next 10 days, every time you feel that pull or you connect to something that you don't know the reason why, but there's like a no to something, a yes to something else, or I committed to something and I'm not sure, just start listening to it and see how your life begins to unfold. That to me is like the first place of beginning to reconnect and trust ourselves again. And in that, that's where I want to take people, to trust themselves again. I, as a therapist or a practitioner or a teacher, can't give that to someone, but I can help guide them back into the connection to themselves, to the point where they actually feel able to navigate their own lives from that space and from that place. And it can, again, sometimes the way I speak, I'm like, does that sound like it's really out there? But actually it can be very practical of like, open up the fridge, and instead of going for the thing that you told yourself you were going to have, literally ask your body in that moment, like, what direction am I moving in? Like, becoming a little less planned, and it relates to the authenticity, right? Because it's in that moment, what's true. In this moment, what's true. And just to keep coming back to that, I feel is like step one of this journey. And it's going to continually support. And it also takes away this paradigm that so often we're in of looking outside of ourselves for a solution or for an answer. We have to begin, I really believe we have to begin to listen to ourselves in a way that feels meaningful again, and in a way where we are developing trust. Because every time you open Instagram, there's the next headline that tells you like, this is good and this is bad and this is, and this, and it's just overwhelming. And the antidote to that is like, how can I live in a place where I walk through my day and I know myself well enough to orient, to know when it's too much, to know when it's not enough, and to begin to develop that resource of self-connection. And as that's what I know that this pathway of education is going to create more of, that sort of dialogue between client and practitioner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coming back to your own integrity. Adam, how do you navigate, like, I know you have your own practice where, and you're pretty outspoken if you want to do something or not, but what happens internally before you even say that out loud?
Me? No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How do you, what happens internally before you go, nah, I'm not going to do that? Or, yeah, this feels good.
I don't really know. I feel like I'm just in a discovery with myself. Like, I don't relate to myself as if I know myself. I really believe that is illusory. Because, and I don't really believe that I know other people either. And from that perspective, it feels more like I'm just kind of in a discovery and a play with the moment. And that play doesn't mean like, it feels like a sense of just curiosity and play with human energy. Like, there's so many feelings going on inside at all times if you just really tune into them. And then there's all these interesting feelings happening in space with other people too. And to just like really tune into all the intricacies of that and take that in. One thing that someone said this when we were up at your house, like at that little retreat that we did in the beginning, that authenticity is when there's congruence between what you're feeling in here and what you're expressing. And I started to notice all these moments where like, I'm feeling this in here, but then up here, I'm trying to convey something else. I even noticed it when we first started. I was like nervous, I was shaking, but then I was trying to be like Mr., stoic and say smart things. But like then inside me, there's also simultaneously this like little boy who's just really nervous. And that's true. So I think there's also like just an acknowledging of everything that is here. And when you do that, yeah, like life, it's really interesting because it's always different.
It's something we seek, is this aliveness, right? If you think about every life coach out there and every person telling the next person they're going to help them, like, what are they offering in many moments? It's like this reconnection to aliveness. And I actually really love what you're describing. And I could feel you shaking on the couch. And there's the part of me, and there's the part of me that's trained to be like, Adam, like, stop shaking on the couch,
Yeah.
And actually, no, like, shake, like, be in that, like,
authentic
in
expression,
that expression. And it's so subtle, even just now we get to catch it in the way that we're set up here. And, we're presenting something and, we have to sound a certain way and present ourselves in a certain way. And
well, that's why I was nervous, because I wasn't expecting to be that way. But then we
And how can we each in every moment be giving permission to each one to be really unique, like, and genuinely be in that. And I love
that's
that.
the art. That's the art, right? Like to let Adam be that way,
and me to be like completely expressed how I am now, and you to be expressed from a field of like also awareness of the other and understanding of the other and listening to the other.
And to do that also, you have to see other people, ourselves and other people, in their glory and their deficiencies. I really only feel comfortable around people at this stage of my life who do see both. Like if someone's like glorifying me in any way, I'm just like, I can't really be around you, because it's just, I can't be authentic. I can't maintain that illusion of like, oh, I'm this great person who's perfect. Like I just can't, and I think we do that really well together. And believe me, I know their deficiencies and they know mine. And and we do like, we kind of play with them. And in that play, I find that we grow together. And that's so cool. Like that's such a cool dynamic to have as we're creating this thing. And I think in trying to inspire other people to relate in that way too.
Yeah, it's a gift of relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's one thing to be aware of like, oh, I have this little boy in me, or I'm kind of angry right now, you know? And then it's another thing to kind of balance that plate of your own experience, and then, you know, hold space for other people, or just see them where they are and accept it while you're trying to balance your plate. And relationships, whether it's work or love relationships, are just the most potent ones of all, like for mastery.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it becomes really potent with that. So now here we have, viewers and listeners, 3 founders who ain't afraid to be authentic and vulnerable. Adam, you've been in this business world for a long time. A lot of people from up top are not really embodied like that. What is the effect of people who are truly not afraid to feel and express to each other? What is the effect of that on a business? Because there's people viewing, listening right now and going, there's something stuck with my business. I'm not getting enough consumers. I'm not getting enough clients. I'm not getting enough signups. And they're not looking at, this might be possibly a reflection of me.
Yeah.
I'd like to start with you, and Molly, I want to know your take. What's going on when people are stuck in their business? Is it really a reflection of them?
Okay. So I see a lot of people on Instagram talk about how relationships are a reflection. And that's true. That's who we let in our space and the energy that we put into someone, they're putting back. That's true. I believe that, I truly believe this, that our work or our creativity or our art or our business, I actually see that as a more pure and unadulterated reflection of ourselves than even a relationship. Because when we're in a relationship, there's another universe happening. So there's kind of counter transference. It's a therapeutic term. But with your work, if you just, at any point, if you look at the total body of everything that you've created, and you really assess it as, okay, like what's going well, what's not going well. I'll give you an example. It was like 7 years ago. I used to have a company that trained yoga teachers in Bali. The first 18 months, we went from nothing to becoming the largest yoga teacher training company in the world in 18 months. I was 27. I was living in Bali in hotels. It was like, this is incredible. And so I took a moment at that moment. So I was reflecting on, there's one dimension of this that is going really well. We're like in Yoga Journal and, you know, but I was tuning into the full experience of that. And I noticed that this dynamic also of like, I'm not super happy right now. And I can sense that the other members of the team are not happy. And I took that as a reflection of myself. I am not creating a culture. I'm creating a culture where there's a lot of growth and a lot of success, and it looks beautiful, and, it's kind of structurally set up the right way. But culturally, the people in that container, like the way we were interacting was just not, it wasn't like friends. And I took that as a reflection of myself. And I think it got better over time because I worked on that part of myself of like how to create a culture of friendship. Now, just to take it into present, like now when I look at us, there's so many reflections. For example, like I think we do really well. Like it feels like everyone on our team is friends. I feel like we're friends with our students. That's really cool. I think sometimes like my big reflection over the last 6 months is like the amount of typos.
Oh my gosh.
that go out.
Every day I'm
And it's kind of crazy because I really like work on it.
Yeah.
I like read it through so diligently, and it seems like no matter what I put out, there's always some sort of
And now we have a system. You send it to me.
and now
we work together.
Now I send it to her. Anyway, the point is that if we're willing to see our creation as a full reflection of our consciousness, I think it's the best self-growth tool that I've ever had a relationship with. And it gives you some really harsh reflections. Because if people are out there and they're like, gosh, I can't even make I made like 20 grand this year. I can't even pay my bills. Like you have to really look at yourself to look at some core stuff. And some of that stuff is like, I'm a terrible communicator, or I'm inconsistent with my energy, or I don't know, it could be anything, but yeah, so that's, I would say that's my answer. And I think when you're as leader, when you are relating to your creation in that way and inviting other people to create on that level as well, where the point of it is not the numbers of success. Those are important and we track those and we expect growth. But the real like spiritual point is for us all to receive reflections about ourselves so that we can improve them slowly over time and in an environment of play. That's to me there's a lot to that. It is an art. Like I really think, to me, leadership and creating a culture of company growth, one of the hardest things on earth to do. And it really is an art. So I think that the dimension of like, I said this to you guys in the beginning, like people think of culture as like, do we have fun together? Yeah, but it's more so how we keep each other accountable. So if I mess up, you tell me right away. If one of us is like checked out for a little while, even the people below us in the company will call us out. How fucking cool is that? Like, I love that we have a culture like that. Yeah.
Molly,
that was a long answer. Sorry.
No. But it's I can speak to that too. But I want to hear, Molly, what you think about if business, even for the people who are just starting as like life coaches, if business is truly a reflection of the person.
Yeah, I think this is where we have a great balance, because for me, the way I relate to my creative output is as much as possible trying to release the expectations of what this culture and this society want me to create. I was, for a long time, I was very strongly identified with like, oh, I'm a musician. Oh, now I'm a yoga teacher. Now I'm a movement teacher. And actually a big part of my healing journey has been to let go of all of that. And in that, it's allowed me to come a lot more into an authentic creation of like, today, what do I feel really excited to pour in to this? Like, this is the project that's here, and how can I make this creative? And I remember saying to Adam once, like, he was calling me in because I'd been, I think, just focusing on other things. And I've been like, but I just want to be more creative.
And she means I was yelling at her.
Yeah.
Translate
What
that.
a sweet way to say it.
Yeah, it was one of those hard moments of like, be more present. And I was like, but these other creative pursuits, and actually what I'd been negating was the fact that if I'd have actually been showing up very present in that moment to this work, I actually could have been pouring a lot of creativity into it. And because I was like sectioning it as a business, I wasn't connecting the two things. And so I'm saying this to kind of wrap it around to say, can we pour in a presence to whatever it is that we're doing from that quality of connection, which is the place to me, which is the highest and the most primary in any journey. And for me, that's the growth, is that I begin to relate to what I'm doing from a place of deep connection. And you can feel at the roots of any company or any brand or any group of people, like what the feel is, what the felt sense is there. I think that
you can feel that.
I can feel it. I feel sensitive to what's at the roots of something. And I really know for me, the more present I become in pouring myself into it and not having to like separate that, the more I'm actually able to show up well and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the two answers, right? We're talking about team building, leadership, and this is your own personal.
What's interesting about what you're saying is that it's entirely an internal process.
Yes.
And I think that I think the tendency is to try to define like the mission and the meaning based on what the company is producing. It took me like 20 years of being an entrepreneur to realize this, that it doesn't matter so much if you're selling refrigerators or if you're selling spiritual courses. Like it's really like you could sell refrigerators in a way where it's like everyone is, the energy of it, the embodied energy, people love that. They're supporting each other. It's an amazing community. You can also create a spiritual organization with a spiritual mission, as I'm sure we've all seen, that is devoid and people are participating in it, but their life is actually getting worse off.
Yeah.
And so, I think for you, like your relationship to it being purely internal, you're not even really like thinking about how's the company doing. You do, but it's not like the most important thing.
Definitely
or
not.
It's more about like, what's my evolution with the relationship, which I really like. Yeah, that's amazing.
And does it feel creative? I really value feeling an outpouring of creativity. And I think it's really easy for our creativity also to be defined by something outside of ourselves. Like I felt guilty for a long time that I wasn't making music anymore. And I'm like, have I just shifted into something that's, in the matrix because we're making money? There was actually a guilt. And now I've started to see that the place of presence and connection from which this is coming to is what's true right now. And in 2 years, I might be doing something completely new or completely fresh or back to something I did before. But actually, like in this moment, I think presence is the gift.
Well, how do you speak to the early entrepreneur who's like, I want to build a sensual connection program, right? And they just finished the course and they got their certification, and they're creative. This person is a creative person, but they don't want to get on the sales calls. They don't want to do the websites. They don't want. Is it presence when doing those things that fulfills that bucket where you feel connected to something?
If they're clear enough as to, are they doing that because do they actually want to do that? I love to start with that when someone's got a new thing. I'm like, do you actually want to do this thing?
Yeah.
Is it true? Where does it come from inside of you? Like, what value is it meeting that is a value that you want to be showing up in your life with? Like, these sorts of questions, not to then be like, let's build the best brand, but to be like, can you sustain presence in what you are going to show up to? And that for me is the question that I ask anyone starting, because from that, the sales calls are a joy, because you're speaking to people and you get to just speak about the thing that you're incredibly passionate. I do all of me and one other, we do all of our admissions calls for our school.
Yeah.
Still.
I'm doing our admissions right now for the master's.
For the masters. Yeah.
And how do you feel connected to it?
I get to speak about the thing. I get to speak about the topics that we're speaking about right now. And I get to understand where people are at in their journey and why this pathway, professionally or personally, is the next step for them, and if it is. And so if this was something I wasn't connected to, those admissions calls would become really, really challenging.
Right.
And I find a way to do it in a way that feels connected. I'm often walking in nature and I'm putting my headphones in, or I'm moving my body whilst I'm speaking to people. Like, I'm also, how do I stay connected to that energy we're speaking about that then that person is feeling? I'm staying true to what I need to stay well whilst in this growth moment. And we're not above doing any of that. And I would say that if someone's really into what they're into from a place where it's self-defined, not other defined, like they've chosen it because they want to do it, not because it's the latest craze, I believe that all aspects of that will be an outpouring of their creativity.
So the young entrepreneurs out there, I want you to listen to this then. The true answer is, what are you building? Are you connected to it? Are you present with it? And then everything else that comes from it comes from that energy. If it's off, then everything else is going to be off.
Yeah, and some things will feel more fun than others.
For sure.
My sister has run her own business for the last, I think, 10 years. And she says to me, she's like, not every aspect of it is going to always feel like the best thing ever.
I get so upset when I see the people's Instagrams where they're like, you should like do exactly the work that you love to do and you can have it be at ease all the time. Not true.
Yeah, it's not true.
Because it's just not true. Like running a business, it is one of the hardest things on earth. It actually is not a natural thing. Like we're not conforming to nature's cycles when we're building a business. Like we're making a creation and there's going to be a part of it's like saying, oh yeah, having a kid, oh, that'll be easy. It's just naive. Like it's just not based in reality.
And the fact that it's not easy doesn't mean you don't want it.
The whole time you were talking, I was thinking about how like it feels like we're a family. And I was wondering, if we're a family, then what role are each of us?
I'm the mommy.
Oh, man.
Christian like can zoom into like mom and then also little boy.
Yeah.
You're kind of, I think you're like, I was gonna say grandma, but you're like the grandma from like 3 generations who passed away, but whose presence is still.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
The spirit grandma?
The spirit grandma.
You're the spirit grandma.
I've been told I'm wise beyond my years. Is this why?
Okay. Adam's just a dad.
Pretty dad.
Straight up.
Yeah.
But I can.
And child.
Dad and.
Annoying.
I feel like I can go into the youngest.
Out of all of us.
Out of all of us.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm like this.
So my range is like.
You feel
your
more
range
stable.
is. I think your range is like probably 13 to.
Adult.
Whatever you have, 40.
Yeah, 40.
I feel like mine is like 7 to like 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well,
Glad we've established that.
So define if you have co-founders, define your ages, your theoretical ages in the company. That's good.
There's so many correlations to building a company and having kids. I haven't had kids yet, but I just see so much of the energetics in that. And like there's an intimacy in the beginning that is like when you have a kid, you have to be there every second. But then it eventually gets to a point where if you're holding it that tightly, it's not in the kid's best interest. It's just like gradual letting go. So like the energetics of what it feels like are like a ton of intimacy in the beginning. And like we've been in that. Us 3 have been in a vortex for the last
It's November.
year. Yeah. Jesus, it hasn't even been a full year.
Not even a full year.
Put this configuration.
Yeah.
But then it, becomes like, now there's more people getting involved. We have more staff, we have more teachers. And like, you could imagine if us 3 are just holding it as tightly as we have been, it actually can't grow. So there's like a gradual letting go process as well.
I love that we spoke about the relationship, the energetics of business and reflection of the person. I swear in my head, I'm like, oh, I feel like I've mastered relationships, and it still teaches you and humbles you. But
yeah,
and then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, what about business? And what about like brand? And what about work? And it's really humbled me over the past 2 months where I had to do self-reflection and go, am I really happy with DrG brand? I'm happy with our brand. Right. I think we're doing great stuff, but it felt so out of alignment because I wasn't present or connected to my work. And the
Right.
strategies that I was taking were do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? And I hate having restricted boundaries because I work with my gut, and I work as soon as I'm lit up, all that creation comes out, and it comes out fast and strong.
And you were one of the original, I'm not just saying this to gas you up. You were truly one of the original innovators in the content health space. I remember I saw you on a reel in like 2019, and I slid into your DMs, and I was just like, hey dude, I love your content. Like it resonated so deeply. And I feel like you inspired so many people.
Yeah.
And now everyone's like doing that.
I'm an
and
OG.
It's now cool to see you like start exploring
Shifting.
and what is the next future of that.
Yeah, I've always had a sense for what is shifting.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always knew when we were going to start talking about environmental toxins, and then as soon as it got really hot, I left.
So in the health and, you know, content space, like what do you see shifting?
Literally authenticity, not like be authentic and be an authentic influencer.
Right.
Literally authenticity. It's going to happen because the way it works is that there's always this pendulum swing, just like life and like politics and everything. The same thing in the content space, and we completely went into this like fabricated step-by-step hook, sub-hook, this, then this. And unfortunately, people's attention spans have gone down over the years.
Right.
So they kind of need that. But how can you just do it organically from like the realist space?
Right.
People are desperately craving connection. We were talking about this, Adam. I don't want to do this podcast anymore where I'm just teaching and directing people about what to do.
Yeah.
Like I want them to feel in connection. And this is why I'm loving this conversation, is because we're just talking in connection about the things that matter to us. And hopefully a bunch of people really feel connected to us and just open up themselves to our messaging.
Yeah. And some people won't, and some people will be like, oh, those
But that's
assholes, fuck
authenticity,
them.
right? Like,
Well,
you don't
that's
have to
part
worry
of it
about
being
that.
integrative in our approach of therapeutics, is that when you sit down with someone who's just trained in one thing, you're expecting your client to resonate with that form of therapy. And when you do come from an approach where you can take them on a journey of looking at all aspects of themselves, their mind, their body, their emotional field, their physical field, you're actually giving the opportunity to meet the client where they are and in what is most important in their relationship to themselves in that moment. And that to me is also where a lot of connection comes between sitting there and creating a resonance with someone who's sitting in front of you and deeply getting to know them. As if I sit here and I think that this is the one way and this is what's right, I'm immediately creating the possibility of more disconnection. But I sit here and say everything here is like, this is what I'm discovering in this moment. And I could come back on this podcast in a year and share such a different perspective on creativity and share such a different perspective on business from what we've learned. And we are always learning. We receive so much feedback from our students, from our mentors, from our teachers. We're in such an ecosystem of we're building this together versus we know this thing.
Totally.
And we're telling you how to do it. I mean, our integration with the teachers who we admire and love, we're in constant conversation.
Yeah, people ask like, what's the vision? And I have a hard time answering that because I'm like, we literally like, we kind of set a ball in motion and we just listen to our customers. Truly, like we get on the phone with them and we're like, yeah, what are you wanting? And we create what they're most desiring. Like there's a very general direction, but the vision is really co-created with our students and the other teachers, and everyone who comes in like influences it in a cool new way.
I certainly learned that, especially being in here with you guys, is not dictating where this whole thing is going.
Yeah,
and teaching on the courses. And one thing that you had just said right now that stuck out is the connection with the therapist and the client. And one thing we teach in Elm is people get so stuck on exactly how to deliver what to say and lose the space holding and lose the ability to, how is their tone? Where are they talking from? Are they grounded? Because people can sense each other's nervous systems. Are they coming from a grounded state? And it's still like a lot of therapy is teaching people from their head, right? Here's how you're going to structure this visit.
and here's how you're going to deliver the questions.
Right.
When in reality, we're trying to teach more embodied therapists to come to the space more embodied to do transformation.
I think like the state of mental health and wellness right now is there's been this huge rush into professional certifications. Totally makes sense because it's like impossible to get licenses in anything. And it's like, it seems like myself included and most of the students that we talk to, like they come in and they've done a bunch of different education. They've done like, I've done a little somatics, I've done yoga teacher training, I've done massage, and they're really coming to us to give them the grounding and the platform to materialize that into some sort of forward motion. And that, I think to what you're saying is like that process, I think, is a little mysterious. It's a little hard to nail. And it really is an embodiment process of like, I've come to a place in my own work where it feels like it's just naturally pouring out, and recognizing that it's not really about, to what you were saying, like, it's not about being smarter than your client. It's not about having a better thing to say. It's not about having a more profound thing to say. It's that our nervous system is regulated. And this is what Dr. Heller says. He's like, to your clients, you are, as a therapist, you're lending them your nervous system for a little bit. Because when you sit in space with people, that we all feel each other on such a deep level. And this is like, by the way, like your superpower, like the way you feel into people's energy, it's really profound, and are able to like pinpoint what's going on. But if we're going into that space with somebody else and we're all nervous and we have all these judgments around these things that are coming up, that's the product that you're giving to someone. That's the service. And so I think the work we do, it can be kind of confronting because it requires a lot of self work in a lot of different ways. But that's I think when you see people get to that place of confidence in themselves because their own system is so regulated, people just start asking to share space with them.
Yeah, that's the healing.
It's organic. It's like, you don't even have to really think about the business as much because you're resonating on this frequency in your community of like, wow, this person's living really good. And I want to get their perspective. I want to spend time with them and open up some hard stuff. And I think that's when it really starts to lock in. Yeah.
We're teaching a big part of what's missing in these schools is how to be an embodied human being and hold in a master space another human being. And then you have all the tools you need and you choose them based on what is exactly needed in that moment.
And that's not an intellectual process.
It's not an intellectual.
Not something that you learn.
Yeah, you fall back on the tools.
Yeah, it's not like, I read this thing and I understand it. You'll understand it actually really quickly. Like, I think we overestimate how hard it is to learn the concepts of somatics and psychology. Like, they're all pretty basic. You can learn them in a couple lectures, but then we drastically underestimate how long it takes to like live them, and then learn the actual like technical skills to bring somebody into that space as well.
Yeah,
that's a whole other thing. And so, people who go through like an Embodied Lab program, which is it's an incredible like introductory program. I just think that was like the underpinning for why we were like, okay, how do we actually go on a deeper journey with people to prepare them for this work? Yeah,
for sure. Your embodiment practice, Molly, has helped you feel regulated with yourself, have a center to drop into. How has it helped you relationally? Not just with like clients or when you're running, but with friends and with partners. How has that completely shifted? Because there's people viewing and listening going, okay, I want to feel that center that you said somewhere in my body or maybe in my chest or maybe in my belly, and I want to connect to it every single day. Is that even going to help my relationship though?
Yeah, that could be a podcast in itself. We'll remember that topic. I mean, it touches everything. My capacity to feel my own sense of security inside of myself probably is the number one thing I'll just say in this moment, where I'm connected to myself not based on the context of the other, and that is actually what creates the freedom to genuinely relate to another from the place of my own center, rather than, we hear about the attachment styles of anxious and secure and all these things, but I genuinely, that word safety and security in this dynamic is what nervous system and somatics has taught me, is to be able to feel another and actually feel them.
Yeah.
And also feel me, and to feel the we between us, rather than like the merging that I think, when I imagine myself in relationship 8 years ago, it kind of makes me cringe because I'm like, wow, I didn't even know what it felt to be experiencing myself in relation to the other. Like, I was the other and they were me, and that was the only thing I knew. And now I feel so much more joy in my relationships because I'm not defining myself based on them, but actually I can connect deeper within them because of that. And yeah, it's really beautiful to feel that sense of security. And that's taken some time and some work and some willingness to look at the moments where that wasn't the case, and to reflect and to use those as opportunities to ask whether that's how I want to engage. And yeah, being connected to the people around me is a very, very strong value. My family is probably the most important thing in my life, and wanting to show up well for my family, both chosen and biological, is something that I hold at like something that I'm always doing the work for me to also show up for them. And that gives me a beautiful motivation for the healing work that I do on myself.
When you said yourself 8 years ago, I wanted it to cut to a montage of like your videos of like you being a yoga teacher and then you being in an ashram, and then can we edit that in?
I've had some chapters.
You've had some chapters.
And this is also just a chapter.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you were an ashram girl.
Okay, wait. This is good. I want to go into that in just 1 second. But when you said this, it hit me with sense of self. Every time I heard sense of self, I intellectualize it, but it's literally your sensing of self. So viewers and listeners, if you go, who am I? Just start sensing yourself.
Yeah.
And go from there.
A good somatic exercise sometimes that I teach is, when we look out, often we're allowing the eyes to go and like seek or to go right out to something, versus like the eyes staying here and receiving the sight or receiving what it is that we're seeing. And it's almost like this 80-20, where 80% of my energy is right here, breathing in my center. I feel my belly, I feel my body on the sofa, and then 20% is like in the receptivity to what it is that's around me. And that's something that can be quite nice to play with, because a lot of our energy is often going out just in the stimulation. If we walk into like a town or into the supermarket or something, where we're looking out and so much is going there, rather than being in this place of like, I'm here, I'm receiving, and I'm in dialogue, and I'm in reciprocity to what's around me, but I'm not identifying myself, or I'm not like seeing myself as those things, having to leave myself in order to approach them.
Yeah, there's a subtle push. If I look at the air purifier at the corner of the room, I can look at it and I'm pushing towards it because I'm looking, or I'm just receiving it and I'm like, oh, air purifier.
Yeah, because the eyes actually don't. It's actually like anatomically not correct to say the eyes are looking out. Like they're actually receiving light.
Yeah,
and one will allow you to breathe more, like one perspective. It's literally a perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
One perspective will allow you to be more connected to your breath, just naturally and effortlessly, than the other. And this can be, I can spend a full session with a client we're just practicing this. And then they'll go out and they'll do something, and I'll say, okay, experiment with this. This is how we play, because to me, everything's an experiment of discovering the relationship with ourselves. And they'll go out and they'll be like, oh, I did all these things and I've come back home and I don't feel drained. But I always do those things and usually I feel exhausted. And it's like, where was your sphere of energy? How were you relating to yourself? Where was your breath? These things make a big difference. And
this is one thing that really stuck out is Dr. Sue Morter came onto the show, and she said something about, and she's fantastic. She goes deep into like quantum healing, and I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
She spoke about subject, object, subject. She goes, if someone comes into the room, we often will abandon our whole awareness and pull it straight to the person,
right,
and then stay with them. And our body panics when we do that. Our body, the heart starts beating. We're in sympathetic state. So she goes, be a subject, then the object, and then come back to the subject, like receive them, feel yourself there, and your body goes, oh, thank you, you're here with me. It's sort of, for me, like I look at the air purifier in the corner, and I look at it, and I leave myself, and I'm with it fully, and I'm like, oh, I'm abandoning myself. And we do this practice with our students, the abandoning of self with the client, and then fully being with the self and abandoning the client, and then being in that 50-50 state.
It's such a subtle thing.
It's so subtle.
But it's like, it's always, it's like happening at every moment. That it's crazy.
I like this exercise. I'm receiving that air purifier. I'm receiving the lights. I'm receiving the camera.
It's like, it's scary to like fully receive another person sometimes.
Oh, for sure. So imagine when it gets really, shout out the fellas out here with intimacy issues and even the ladies. Imagine receiving your partner. So how can we start doing exercises where we're maybe gazing at each other,
relationships,
connecting with each other, right?
Like what? Because that was your question to her, was about relationships.
Yeah.
Like what's been because you've taught some somatic relationship stuff now. So like, how do you think about somatics when another person enters the field?
I by way of my life, the way I grew up, became very good at sensing other people.
Yeah.
And initially it was pathology because I was hypervigilance.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who's looking at me? Am I going to be hurt?
Dancing, so you were probably noticing him a lot.
Yeah. And I was like, where am I? So my sense of self was really not there. But in relationship, I've abandoned myself in every relationship up till like this one that I'm in, which is like a great nervous system, healthy person, which has allowed me to really feel myself. Who am I in relationship? And actually authentically feel that. But in connection in relationship, the most important thing, and I can't imagine myself ever being with someone whose system is hypervigilant, sympathetic, heart beating, always anxious, always on edge, because I will get the same way. I can't not help it, even if I have boundaries, because I'm being in the same environment as that. And so the people viewing and listening, I'm saying in relationship, you got to really have a good sense of your partner's nervous system. Are they shut down completely and they don't want to feel? Know a lot of ladies out there, your fellas are like that, because a lot of us men we're good at shutting down. Or are you in a partnership where someone their heart's beating and they can't, they're always anxious about everything and they're overwhelmed? And can we get to a place where we both have regulatory practices, somatic practices, breathing, how are we receiving the world, that great practice, easy, to start regulating ourselves? And for me, in relationship, that's got to be a priority. Because if both nervous systems are dysregulated, you guys are fighting about the garbage and then the stuff in the sink nonstop.
Yeah, it's like being with one nervous system is like so.
Being with your own,
lot.
Being with your own is a lot.
Bringing in another one, it's like it's kind of like a miracle that it even works, honestly. But it's I've noticed this, that interoception, and empathy are mutually exclusive. Meaning you can't simultaneously tune into your nervous system and someone else's. You're either doing, I actually revise that. You actually kind of teach.
We teach
that
the 50-50 right in the middle.
You teach them to be right in the middle. But I think that's important to like acknowledge that you're simultaneously having to have a relationship with this. I like subtle energy better. Like that just resonates with me more. Like you're having a relationship with your subtle energy, and then also dancing with another person's subtle energy. And I don't know that there's like a way to formulate that. The same way, like the moment you try to formulate the idea of authenticity, you're kind of out of it. You just have to be in that dance with someone.
But to Molly's point, when you establish a sense of self and have your own practices,
that's you got to have that.
You got to have your own practice. You got to.
Well, that's
Claire
also where
practice.
resilience comes from. And I do want to speak to this piece, which is, just because we begin to attune to our own nervous system doesn't mean we go out there in the world and we're a sponge. Actually, quite the opposite. It actually means there's more resilience to hold a compassionate space to whatever is happening around us. And this is what is also needed when you're holding a group class or you're with a client, is to be able to truly compassionately hold whatever this person in front of you is moving with and through, and you're able to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to deeply listen and feel it and sense them, but it's not completely throwing you out of whack.
Remember,
Why isn't it throwing you out of whack? Because you have a sense of self, you have a center.
Yeah, and because
To
my
come back
nervous
to?
system is regulated, but in a way where I'm choosing also the value of receptivity. I'm not becoming, I'm regulated and now I have to protect myself and I can't go out into a busy place because I'm
Right.
so sensitive. Because I've
Yeah.
also been in that stage of this.
remember you talked about this in like the very first thing we ever shot. It's the energy channels of like monitoring whether they're open or closed. And part of why I stopped doing yoga is because there's an implicit suggestion that your energy channels should be as open as possible all the time. So it's you're being led implicitly to become like universally sensitive, as if that's the optimal state. And I disagree with that so much. I think there's a proper tuning, and depending on what you're doing in your life at that moment, like you want to be tuned to either be appropriately open or appropriately like resilient. Because actually, as much as people talk about how bad it is to be closed down, you are also very resilient in that space. Like if you're going to war, you can't have your chakras open. Like that's your warrior. Your body needs to be attuned to that arena. And so I think like that's just, to me, that was just one of those things when that like clicked when you said that.
Attunement.
It's that it's not just trying to be as open as possible or as closed off in your channels. And I'm talking about like just the way people might not understand what I'm even saying when I'm saying open and closed channels. It's like, how do we explain open or closed channels? It's like your open channels are like when you're kind of after you stretch and you feel light and energy's like flowing through your body easily. In that state,
or you've just had an emotional release, or you're feeling a lot. There's an openness.
Right.
There's a sensitivity, a porousness almost.
Porousness. Yeah.
That's a good word. Yeah. But that helped. And I like that more so than using like the words regulation. Because regulation is like, that's the word we use when we're talking about what the government does. It's like laws.
F the government.
Yeah, it's a certain
I'm regulating.
standard.
So I was asking myself, like, why do we use that term?
Yeah, I agree.
And
with
it's a
that.
very like,
Flexibility is even better, right? Like being more flexible
nervous
with your
system
nervous system.
flexibility, nervous system
we started
attunement.
using like, sometimes we talk about like, I like tuning. Like I'm tuning my nervous system. Like, okay, how do you want to tune your nervous system today? Do you want to tune it to be more open so you can have like a beautiful heart opened experience with your partner? Cool. I'm going to tune myself that way this morning in my practice. Do I need to be more resilient? Do I need to be a little bit more like,
Yeah, am I
gotta work all day,
exactly?
you
Am
know?
I like in a rush getting out the house and I need to be
Yeah.
super efficient?
Right.
I'm actually going to tune myself to like, I've got this energy and like I'm a little bit more strong
use,
spine.
like nervous system regulation, that word, the like people have like jumped on that so much. Like I still can't grasp what people are really talking about when they're talking about
I think it's
If
the
they're talking about a regulated
possibility to
state.
feel equilibrium in the body.
The regulated state.
regulated
is
state.
is the grounded, like balanced state. That's where it's coming from. But the next step is from that state, can you also run sprints and then go to a sympathetic state and go back to that grounded,
It's like coming in and
everyday
out of
state.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
coming in and yeah.
Right.
What's the healthiest parasympathetic? I'm digesting, absorbing my
Right.
food state.
That's been one of the biggest things for me, is like owning that I don't always desire to be in like a perfectly regulated state. It's like sometimes the most fun experiences are when we get to have sympathetic experiences, but then be able to navigate back.
But then you're not stuck in there.
Not stuck in it.
And
Exactly.
the clients who come to our students are kind of stuck in there.
It's when they're stuck.
It's when they're stuck
Right.
and they want to come back to that state and have more flexibility.
And by the way, the stuckness could be in either way. Stuckness can look like shutdown,
yeah,
but you can also get stuck in hyperactive too.
Yeah.
And that's when you learn that, it's like, it feels so basic. You're like, obviously the person who's like hyperactive needs a completely different thing, but that's not even in the conversation yet in therapeutics.
No, not
which is
at all.
like, that's so crazy to think about, that there's millions of people going to therapy and therapists like aren't even aware of whether they're hyper or hypoactive. Like that actually blows my mind.
Yeah, because that's too somatic. That's not in the mental space.
Right.
Even though of course it is, because that's informing the mental space. Okay. So here we are. We have this program at the Integrative Psychology Institute, and we are now offering a master's program. And the people who graduate are going to become integrative therapists, proper integrative therapists. So Molly, starting with you, what does it mean to be a proper integrated therapist? What does that truly, truly mean to embody that?
It means being able to hold the possibility of offering a client a connection to themselves that will influence how they relate to everything in their lives, from themselves to their relationships, to their external environment, to their creativity, to their business, ongoing. Not just for that one session, not for that 1 week, but that these tools and that this context of what connection can feel like, of connecting to yourself, is going to be a completely new paradigm shift for them.
How about you, Adam?
What does it mean to be an integrative
therapist? Our graduates, what is it? What are they going to embody, our graduates?
Wow, so many ways I could answer this. To me, what we're working on right now is that acknowledging the different layers of our existence, in that, like Plato described it as, this is like, I talk about this all the time, but I love this. It's like the charioteer driving two horses, the driver, the charioteer, the person directing. That's like our cognitive ability. Our identity, which is this sort of like white, well-tamed, disciplined horse, which it's kind of the part of ourselves that we're building and showing the world. And then this like kind of wild, untamed horse, which is the soma system, which is the driver of it. And it's mysterious and we can't really understand it. And it's intuitive. And like the acknowledgement of all parts of those is really cool, and like how those interact together. And so to me, it means that the people who come to us, that's what I want them to leave with. They're like, I understand the behavioral patterns, which come from conventional psych. And it's super, super useful, by the way, when you study Skinner's work and conditioning. It's like fundamental life stuff. Okay, that's one dimension. Then the relational dimension, our identity, the well-tamed horse, that's important to cultivate in ourselves too. Also not the full story, because there's this mysterious driver of the system, which I think is very tied to spirit. It's very tied to our lineage, the somatics, which in and of itself is super powerful. Also not the full story. But when you put all those together, you really get what feels like, it's never a complete understanding, but it's like a coherent understanding, so that we don't get stuck in one of them. And I think historically we tend to get stuck in these modes. And I think right now people are either in camp cognitive or they're camp somatic. And they're both kind of like looking at each other and they're like, no, that's not enough. And that, but you're both right. Like there's different dimensions of humanity, and we're just focusing on different ones. And so it's pretty amazing, I think, just personally, when you start to engage with all parts of yourself. It's like, oh, I have this feeling of like, it's really working.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling better. I'm understanding myself more. So that's my answer. I think just an understanding of those different layers is pretty cool.
And we'll close. The way that I perceive it is our graduates finish their schooling with, most importantly, a connection to themselves, a knowing of their nervous system, maybe even getting there for a mastery of their nervous system, really, really knowing their flexibility, where to come back to, so they become exquisite space holders and have every single tool in the book that they need to fall back on. And they're not thinking about it, they just know what to do. And for me, that's the new type of therapist that's coming out into the world. And that's who we're training. And I'm very proud to be part of that.
And saving people $100,000. We literally saved a student $100,000 yesterday.
She was
enrolled in another program. She was going to pay 120 grand. And she's like, I wasn't even feeling that good about it. And she's like, we literally saved a student $100,000.
That's what we're doing.
Awesome.
Aside from all the qualitative stuff, we are saving you money. All right. If you want to become a therapist, this is the way to go. And I mean it. I put it all out there. Viewers and listeners, thank you. Even if you don't want to become a therapist, thank you for just getting to know yourself and your body and your psyche and us and what matters to us. And thank you both for being the awesomest co-founders.
Thank
all right.
you.